Good morning, friends. Last night was a bit chilly. Or, not, I wouldn't say chilly, but you can definitely feel the air starting to cool down a little bit. And today it's just pretty cloudy. There's a spider there on my wall, crawling up there. It's pretty chill. I'm not too scared of spiders. I used to be when I was a kid. I feel like most people were. But I find spiders to be pretty, I feel like it's nice to have a spider in the house. It gets rid of the bugs and whatnot, and I feel like that myth where you say you swallow 8 spiders a year, I just don't really buy that too much. So today, guess what I can talk about? Something that was kind of on my mind a little bit is the concept of ideology is just something I don't really ascribe to, right? And there's so many people, like right now, especially on the internet, and you have like this ideological war going on, and it's almost like it's like picking a sports team, right? It's like, what ideology are you going to be a part of, and who are you going to defend, and which one are you going to like learn everything about and then try to belittle every other ideology? It's kind of something I find just simply a waste of time and a waste of effort in order to argue just specifically for an ideology. I think it's important to discuss the issues that these ideologies stem from, right? But to just delve into it and just morph yourself into an ideology and sort of sacrifice your own individual views to an ideology, I find to be pretty naive personally. I feel like a lot of people sort of find these ideologies to just find themselves, right? They're trying to figure out who they are and what they believe in, and they think that, finding this ideology, this group of people where they feel like they belong, they don't have this necessarily this isolation factor where they feel like they're alone in their views, and they find this ideology and it sort of provides them all the answers that they're looking for. And you have so many empires and so many different countries and nations and philosophers and all kinds of visionaries, and they've been doing this for 4,000 years, and still we haven't managed to figure it out. And you have this 20-something-year-old who has no life experience, who has like basic college education that's biased based to whatever classes they chose to take, and they think that they figured it out with this one specific ideology they picked basically from a basket, kind of. Even the whole right-left dichotomy is a little bit bizarre for me, because I'm a person who believes in balance, and I believe that at least the people I look up to or respect the most are people who are balanced in how they view the world and are balanced in how they hold themselves. And this is when you get into the whole thing where it's like, oh, you're a centrist and you're this and you're problematic because you're supporting this evil ideology. And it's like, okay, these ideologies aren't evil by themselves. They're evil because of the fact that how people sort of stretch them into actualization, right? And a lot of ideologies are basically, they are unbalanced. It's like you're looking at all of humanity, right? And you're trying to figure out this political spectrum that sort of works for every single person. And that's sort of the end-all goal here, which is kind of I don't want to say it's fruitless, but it's definitely incredibly difficult. And you have these people that ascribe to these specific ideologies that maybe only like 10% of the population might ascribe to, or let's say even 50%, which is still, you have 50% of people are going to be unhappy about that. And that's why we live in a democracy where, you know, you choose by your votes and who you choose to vote for, who you want to be president, etc. So, to me, I have this analogy that I like to think of, especially in like politics and how I see the world. I don't necessarily ascribe to what centrism is, because I don't think that's a real thing, even. And it's also, I mean, there's the kind of centrists that are still incredibly rigid in their own ideology, even though it's technically centered. But to me, it's not about being like rigidly centered, it's about having balance, right? If you're a tightrope walker, for instance, to me it's like you have the left and the right, and you need to achieve some sort of balance. Well, it doesn't happen because of a tightrope walker walking in a completely straight line. It happens from, you know, a little bit of swaying back and forth, not too far to the left, not too far to the right, and they just keep going slowly, and they keep level going. And that's how I sort of feel about ideology, and how I feel about when I construct my own political views, which I again don't really care much for, because I'm incredibly young and don't have much experience, and don't have lived in many different political climates. I've lived in Canada, in the first world, which is basically where in the first world we're having all this political, ideological battles, right? And it's all from people who have never actually really experienced anything, which to me is what I find kind of funny. And you meet people who, let's say, come from these incredibly impoverished countries, or they come from war-torn countries, and they've suffered a lot. Sometimes they'll have incredibly strong political views, and it's shaped by whatever political forces were there, and they find this reason to say, this political system didn't work for me, so now I'm going to go to the opposite side, and this should be what is good. And that's not necessarily the case. You're basically just mirroring the exact same thing that happened to you, right? Which is it happens in a lot of cases. That's why communism in the Soviet Union happened. It was because of the oligarchy in Russia at that time was incredibly capitalist, and they were oppressing people, blah 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 blah. And then, you know, you have this huge uprising, and then people just basically mirror that same exact thing that happened to them, but they call it something else because it's supposed to be different, it's supposed to be new. But the thing is that you can't really construct anything new. You just have to regain balance, right? And that doesn't, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort to achieve that balance. It's like if it's winter time, right? And you go outside and it's really cold out, so you decide, all right, right now it's really cold out, I need to wear a winter jacket so I can keep warm. So it works in the wintertime, everything's fine, you survive, and it's good. And then, you know, summer comes around, but because you are in this ideological mindset, you are so rigid in understanding the fact that this coat works, I need to wear this coat all the time in order for it to work, because it worked before, it will work continuously well. And then summer comes around, now you still have this coat on, you're starting to sweat your ass off, it's like, you know, 30 plus degrees outside, and you die of heat stroke, and you say, well, it wasn't, you know, it's just, that's how it was, right? You have to change to your environment, and environment's always going to shift back and forth. And the same thing with, I'm not going to say political climate, but let's say an economic climate. You need to shift your structure depending on how the economy is, right? And that's sort of how I see it as in a political spectrum. If you're in a state of an economic recession, there are things you need to do in order to alleviate that problem. And if you're in a state where everything's booming, you need to sort of address that situation in probably a different way than what you would do in a recession. But people are so set on the ideological mindset that they don't want to have to change their views because that's too difficult for them, right? It's a challenge for them because then it sort of says that, oh, you were wrong, but there's no such thing as like right or wrong in this case. It's just that right now this works, and then later on it might not work, and you just have to have that humility and integrity to just sort of let go of that. So anyway, that was on my mind. Hope you have a wonderful day.